Good evening, one and all. We welcome you to the International Webinar Series on Holistic Health, Well-being and Sustainable Development 2022. Commemorating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, nation celebrating 75 years of independence, and UN Sustainable Development Goals 2015 to 2030 as part of awareness campaigns in collaboration with Sri Holistic Health Foundation India and Sri Research Institute and Center for Art, Sciences and Well-being. This week is being celebrated as Third National Social Work Week 2022. It is commemorated from August 15 to August 21st, 2022 as part of recognizing the social work profession and faculty and strengthening the social work. So before we start our session today, let's take the blessings of Almighty.
कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शत्रुबुद्धिविनाशाय दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः.
With the blessings of Almighty, we shall continue to today's session. Today, yesterday we were discussing about social work and social service and how social service is being taken up through various activities, and it is being performed by non-social workers. Social workers are those who have been trained formally and who are qualified as a professional social workers. But in those days, this social work was not there until 1930s in India, where formally the Tatas have started their first school of social work. Until then, social work was not institutionalized. I mean, the social service was only considered as social work. I mean, there is nothing like social work at that time. The social service was a synonym for social work, and social work was a synonym for social service. But there is a difference. I think that difference itself is making, social workers not recognized, because when social service is performed by a common man, a social worker is thinking about how he is going to benefit from that, instead of as a common man, if he sees, he tries to help. But nowadays the social workers, so many problems are there, but we unfortunately are not seeing many social workers in the field, where we see common people coming forward and helping, donating. But at times these social workers, or where are they seen? Even when charity happens or when events happen, where are these social work people? This is not my opinion. In general opinion, when we also introduce ourselves, as a social worker, people ask, when floods are happening, where are these social workers? Volunteers are coming, where are these social workers doing? So this is a great challenge. The mindset of our social workers also have to change. That we being the first responders, we need to be there at every place. Now that is the difference between social service is still popular and still continuing in spite of social work as a profession. Like uh, there is a common notion. See, here I am sharing the opinions or notions of the common man. Unless and until we know what common man is thinking, why still social work is not popular is only because of these aspects where they are untrained and these are trained. But in spite of training, getting trained also, if they are not uh, the first responders, then definitely there is a gap that is not bridging. Still we this gap makes us you know uh, stay far away from their expectations. And not only that, the recognition also will not come because social work profession who has to be in the grassroots level, if they are sitting in some offices or if they are thinking that they are white collar jobs and they did not work on the fields, or if they think that they did not uh, come as a first responder, what will happen? These kind of the recognition that they get also will also affect them. Many people are not getting jobs nowadays. Now, because of lot of advocacy, you know, we have to prove ourselves. UPSC has removed social work, and UGC did not recognize social work as a professional course. Why? So, in spite of so much, when we are talking of 75 years of independence, but social work was started even before independence. Then why we are not able to establish? Because we ourselves thought that a social work is a profession, and we did maybe we did not move in such a way to bring a council in the earlier days, and maybe that is the impact that today we all are having. That uh, we are facing today, that we are not a professional because we don't have a council, we don't have a professional body, and even there is lack of unity also. What we see, nowadays, okay, people are coming together and for a common goal. But again, this is not only particular to social work. This is with every field. I am talking in general. So what, like even whereas other fields are also there, which are not, though they call themselves as a professional, but still they are not recognized as a professional. What are these common challenges for everyone? Is lack of professional counsel and lack of professional training. Uh, that is, preventing to be called as a professional social workers. And also, if you see, professional courses are not offered in distance education. This is one of the challenge we are facing. But social work is offered through distance education, and we see more social workers are coming out from distance education institutes. That is also one of the challenge. Of course, there are a lot of positive things that are doing, but those are always there in the place. But why we need to critically analyze, in spite of having so many efforts put into, still we are not able to reach is first the common man. What common man is thinking is, when I face some problem in the community, then the next neighbor is coming or the next person is coming, but not social worker is unable to reach that person. So where is this social worker? In spite of studying also is not reaching that. So the social workers have a opinion that they are doing social work and not social service. They are not meant for the social service. So is this attitude or is this kind of perspective is correct? If they are not meant for the social service, I think social work also should be, social service should be part of social work. It's not that, both are different, unless and if you are not able to respond, then social work will only get, social service will only get more recognition. Though the training and other things differ, but still they are the one who are coming to help when the help is need. And a common, not definition, but many people think that this is a definition for social work, helping to help people, others, or themselves, helping to help themselves. But are we really helping on the ground to help themselves? Yes, definitely we are helping, but to what extent is the question. So, to what extent we are extending our services, whether we are at par with the social service contribution, we are very far away from what social service is contributing when compared to social work. Why this is happening? Because of, we think some people also say that social work is commercial version of social service. Social service, we don't expect anything and we do it. But social work, you expect something and go do it, because either you want salary or either you want some benefit in the time. So this is also one notion. I mean, these are all different perspectives by the common man, because without when a social service is performed, they don't expect anything and they don't need any qualification. Only thing is they need to be compassionate, they need to be empathetic, they need to be sympathetic, at least not empathetic, at least sympathetic, so that immediately they can respond and come for rescue. But even being social workers, trained social workers, if we don't rescue, we think what I will get, how I will be compensated, or what is, because I am a professional, I need to be compensated, I need to be paid for. But social service, they don't think like that. This is the main, I think, we are lacking, that social, somehow this bifurcation of social work from social service has created a lot of, you know, uh, uh, backstage for the social work. Really, they are not getting the recognition of what a social service, what a common man is doing. So this has to change. This perspective has to change. Definitely, we need to have a professional training and we need to have a professional social workers. But the response, we should be the first responders, and we should be able to uh, even more do a quicker response, or more do more service than a social service is being done. But the quantity of social service which is being done across the world is more than what social workers are doing. So maybe this kind of comparison, these all are common man notions. So, what I am explaining is because even as a social worker, because I also keep interacting. I'll say, why don't you call when when there is some crisis, or when there is some. They also keep asking me, when accident happens, the next person will come. Social worker will not come and take us to hospital, or take us to some rescue. Where are these? They are not anywhere in the roads or anywhere on the junctions. What these people are doing instead of getting trained also. These are the common things. And when I go to market, sometimes people address as a psychologist, as a counselor, social worker. Sir, we are facing so many problems. No social work student. Where are your social work students? They don't even come, or you also don't take the initiatives. I mean, these are not the initiatives of taking Monday. They will not solve. There are a lot of dynamics there. There are unions there. You know, Still there is, because everyone is rigid in that place. We also keep telling, but they also go back to their own systems. A lot of things are there. But why we are failing at certain things are, we are not taking up certain jobs where really social work is required, social worker is required. We want always a white collar job. We don't want to work in sun, or in the field. That is making many of the social workers lose their reputation and recognition. There is nothing wrong with, first placement should be in the field work only for every social worker. that will help him to understand what is reality and should be able to reach. I think this is the, you know, uh, a major change that has to take place in the social work area, where, we need to be the first responders for that matter, and we should overtake this social service. Then only we will get that kind of recognition. Even we see the awards also, the social work criteria, most of them are given for the social service, not for social work, because the recognition also by the society should this is one of the major, this thing that social society should recognize the social work and social workers, and they should see the people in action, even on the roads when they have crisis, even when floods are there, they crisis. See, lot of volunteers come, police come, medical rescue team comes. But where are these nowadays? Yes, they are also part of it, but very less people. But what others are doing, we need to take responsibility. Everyone, as a student, if you have studied as social work, or if you are teaching social work, or if you are teaching practice, then you should come out whenever there is a crisis and share that, yes, I am a social worker, how can I help you? But this is not happening, even at the COVID times also. Of course, the main problem social workers are not recognized is they are never, I mean, so recognized by the society, because they never seen a social worker on the roads helping some people, or social worker when there is a flood, or when there is floods in the city or in the villages. They have not seen a social worker coming, rescuing, or doing rehabilitation, or doing medical camps. How they will recognize, how they will appreciate the work? This is one notion. Yes, this is also, of course, I can justify as a social worker, I can justify, I can give my own reasons. But now and yesterday also, we are talking as a common man. I am not talking as a social worker, because we need to bring out, because when we are celebrating 75 years of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, and also when we are seeing why this profession is still not being widely recognized, popular among, the common masses, why students are not, students have, everyone want to do social service, and many people, even more than social professional social workers, these industrialists who have not studied social work, they are doing wonderful job. They are contributing every piece of that. How many social workers are contributing their salaries to that charity, and what kind of amount they are, what portion of charity? These all are the questions. Point. I mean, I heard from people when we keep discussions, why, this, even the recent COVID times also, only particularly some very few were involved in. Otherwise, they are not even recognized as a frontline workers. We being counselors also into psychology, counseling also, in that category, we were part of, frontline workers. Otherwise, being a social worker, it was not recognized, and social workers were sitting at home while doctors, nurses, physiotherapists, all people were on the field, hospitals serving. No, this is what happens, this is the major setback we had, lost ourselves by putting social service somewhere which is not in our scope, where social service has to be done. It is part of human being. Uh, Being social worker is also human being, so you should not lose that quality of, or the social service as the quality of human being. So doctor is doing social service, businessman is doing social service, even a common man who is, even the beggar is, to some extent, is doing social service. Then why not social worker do the social service? This is a $1 million question that is with a common man. Now we have to answer that. Now, why we are not coming forward to do social service? Of course, we are more trained, we are more professionals, we can handle much more effectively with our training, with our certification. But why we are not doing the basic things like social service? So this is a questions. I mean, this is a the public talk that is happening. Then how we are going to address these issues? How we are going to face these issues? This is what widely social service can be done by anyone. That is one advantage. Even being social worker, we are not doing social service. Then what does that mean? How do we convey that? Of course, we'll be talking. We have still some time, some days left. This is just to have a retrospection about ourselves. When we call ourselves as a professional, it doesn't mean that you are not a human being, for that matter, right? You have all the qualities, all the characteristics of a human being. You may be a professional. Professional may be doctor, a scientist, or still they are doing social service. But why social worker is not doing social service? So this is a question raised by many people to me. We always say this is social, social service is different, social work is different, and we explain it theoretically, practically. All things happen, but when we go to common man, this is widely asked. No, other people are coming in spite of you being trained, you being professional, you are not coming to us rescue. We have to keep searching for you where you people are. So I think all the social workers have to answer this. We need to change why this entire system is somewhere lacking this ground level reality. Unless and until we have some job, or unless and until we work in NGO, we are not taking up wallet. Why this is happening? Why entrepreneurship skills are not being developed within the social worker? So this is the greatest what lacune I feel, among the social workers. They are lacking the skills to go independently and do service. They are always looking for some institutionalized support, whether to work in NGO or whether to, go to some government organization or go to some international agency. They are not independently developing themselves. Everywhere there is an opportunity. If there is an opportunity for social service, there is definitely an opportunity of social work. But without any expectation, so social service is being done, and with some expectation, social work is being done. Unfortunately, this is one of the notions of general public. I am not generalizing, but what I heard. Even I also having discussions with this social service now. This week, I was just asking some people, do you know a social worker? What they do? They are showing these, generally these political leaders or these community leaders. No? They are the social workers. They are doing a lot of social work. For them, there is no difference between social work and social service. And when we say, no, this is social work and there are social work, there are social work colleges, there are social work courses that is being offered, then they immediately ask, then why they are not coming into the community? Why these people are doing, and where are those people? And when you are training them, when you are studying social work, then why you are not coming into the picture? So this is a big question for the profession itself. Then how we are going to address these? So these are the challenges we are facing. That's why I personally feel that social service should also be part of social work. Otherwise, what happens? This is the kind of problems we'll be facing. This is grassroots problem, I'm sure, which commonly I face. Maybe as a social workers, everyone might have faced similar issue, but may not have come up. But this is what commonly people ask. when we introduce ourselves also, I am a social worker. So, okay, what did you done? Then what you are doing here? You have to be there in the community. Lot of problems, accidents are happening, but no one is. As a social worker, you have responsibility. You are being trained. Why are you not taking up voluntarily responsibility? Even we see citizens, na, they voluntarily take up clear the traffic. If there is something, some problem on the roads, they are, helping the people. Like when there is some garbage stuck at the manholes, they sometimes they are taking up and they are closing up. A lot of things are being done by a common person, and where is the picture of social worker here? So these are the common things that people are asking us. And now, how we do justify that? You know, how do we say that we are also there? Even COVID time, this was a problem. Where all social workers were sitting at home and others were on the field. They were not recognized even as frontline workers or health workers. Now with the recent allied health bill, yes, they are also recognized. So maybe next time, whenever they nowadays and whenever there is crisis, they will also be part of frontline workers. But yes, I mean, it's not that everyone was sitting. Even most of them were also working. No, but generally, it's a general notion even from the public. These all are not my personal opinions. These are what I heard from the people. I'm sharing here. Maybe we can have a thought. Maybe as a social workers also can share. Okay, if this was a question, then this might be the answer. Of course, I also gave answer for everyone whoever asked me. Maybe that might not be satisfying them, but still, as a responsible person, so we need to answer them. Whether that answer is satisfactory or whether that answer really serves the purpose is a different. But we need to respond, and yes, definitely that gap is there. That is very much clear, and that is very much identified. So how do we fill the gap? I'm not criticizing. I'm not saying anything. I'm discussing about the problems, challenges, issues. Now, as a social worker, what we can do? Yesterday we were discussing about the role of social worker in promoting culture. Culture and promoting preservation and protection of cultures and traditions. How these temples, they are being neglected, and because of that, education is lost, arts forms are lost. You know, uh, these arts, music, and even for that matter, economic activities. Many people are losing employment and lack. And we discussed about festivals also. How you know uh, by not celebrating festivals, how many people are losing their livelihoods who are entirely dependent on them. Last COVID time also there was very limited. No people bought their idols from outside, or no festival was celebrated. See, those who are dependent only on those festivals for the entire year, can you imagine what has happened in their life? No, they did not have anything to eat for the entire year. Did we reach up to them? Of course, government has given some relief. That's why these all have to be very carefully thought. It's not that we are blessed by the God, somewhere we are in the comfort zone. Okay, we have something to eat, but what about the people, who earn on a daily basis, and without earning, at the end of the day, they have to starve. If they don't earn for that day, they have to starve it for the dinner and for the next day. What about people, those who are in that condition? Mostly in unorganized sector. We saw many deaths at times of COVID. Why people came out, were coming out not those who, came for the sake of fun or for the sake. There are people also like that. They don't care and they have put many frontliners into risk also because of their negligible attitude, everything. You know, but those who really, I mean, without working, they cannot even eat one-time food. You know, we have seen the plight of those families, those individuals. Without them, they were not having anything to eat. They were drinking water and surviving, for that matter. I have seen few people. Then we had to mobilize, and because we cannot help everyone. Even personally, I have also limitations. I cannot go because uh, supplies are limited, and because we don't know what will happen tomorrow and how many days it will be like that. And we need to constantly look for supplies. Even certain times, supply was in huge demand. Everyone was hoarding supplies. Some people hoarded for 1 year, and all the supermarkets and everything were empty for some time. The rates shoot up like anything. And how will they buy it? A lot of COVID has given so many challenges for us, and many people died of hunger also. So all these issues are so complex that we need to understand that there was a great scope of social work. Social service was widely performed in the philanthropic activity, charity. Everyone came. Really, we need to appreciate those days. Uh, Even we were feeding, even everyone were, for that matter. Because in the communities they came out in the sense, in their neighborhood, which were almost secure. They secured their neighborhoods so that no other person, outside person comes in. They themselves locked up in their communities, in their colonies. No other person will come, even if other person comes also from outside. They ensured that they are in the they vacated one house or one room, and they ensured that they are isolated there unless and until, for 1 week or 15 days, for 1 month. They observed them carefully. They supplied everything. That kind of care. I'm not saying they're discriminated, but they are very cautious in doing. And in those days also, there was no social worker, and there is no social work in the common man. I mean, everywhere, though there were specific. These were the concerns raised by many people at that time also. When I was also taking up calls and with counseling crisis, lot of people lost when we say that, we do. So they ask us also what you are, and sometimes. So it is very difficult to convince, when we talk other times, when we say we are psychologists, we are counselors, we are social workers, and all these things, then why you are not coming for rescue now, when we are really in need of. So these are, very heartbreaking and heart moving situations. I mean, we need to be prepared for disasters. Nowadays, it's the disasters are going to be a daily norm because of our human activities. Now, how we are prepared for the disaster management? Whether are we prepared? Are we physically prepared? Are we mentally prepared? Are we socially prepared? Are we economically prepared? These are all the queries or concerns that is being raised. If at all we are prepared, to what extent we are prepared, and what are the strategies we are going to uh, have or implement in terms of crisis, in terms of disaster. And so these all things are very important when we are talking about social work or social service, and how do we differentiate, and how we stand apart, and how we stand ahead of social service. So this is the major challenge that I would say as a social work is facing. So we are not able to certain extent reach the grassroots level, as a first response. Yes, of course, when we go up as a community worker, when we do join hospitals as a medical social worker or a psychiatric social worker, no, or when we join schools or institutions as a school social worker or a college social worker or a counselor, we are doing work professionally. But when a common man needs or when a community needs without employment or without any formal organization employment, basically without any employment, are we doing social work, formal employment? That is what people are asking. But social service is not like that. So this is the major, what I feel is personally, this barrier should be broken up. And yes, of course, wherever there is an opportunity as a trained professional worker, we need to take it up. But as a human being, we need to respond and immediately respond and offer this social service. So, I mean, this is what the major challenge what I see, because all other things are fine, helping or definitely you need certain level of training and understanding to help. So definitely trained social workers have already, I mean, they have very good, you know, exposure to all these procedures, systems that will help them efficiently understand, provide interventions and all these things. So in short, we have to say social service is a service that is performed by anyone and everyone. But social work is taken up or performed by those who are qualified social workers or trained, not even if educational, formally educated social work, but they are trained by the experience, by competent social workers or authorities. Most of the problem here, even recently, when our fraternity was proposing social work, lot of hesitation or lot of resistance came from the social workers, because they were not they did not have the educational qualification, but they are doing social work from years, from 30, 40 years, 3, 4 decades, 5 decades. They know better than even educated social workers. They are in the grassroots. So that was a concern, but somehow it has been addressed to be by exempting them. These are the challenges we have, especially. And when we see other people are doing a lot of social work and the amount of social work professionals contributing, I think this is a gap where we need to really work on, and we are working on. It's not that we are not working. We are working on, and this is a gap we need to fill up over a period of time. So when we see what is social work, as proposed by International Federation of Social Workers, it is an international organization across the world, where across the country, across the world, and every country is also who is having a national association. They become the member so that they can exchange the technological or academic or professional exchange that happens. So in July 2014, the social work definition, or we can say global definition of social work, was approved by the IFSW General Meeting and IASSW General Assembly in 2014. So as per that, what is the definition? So global definition of social work profession. Social work is a practice-based profession and an academic discipline that promotes social change and development, social cohesion, and empowerment and liberation of people The principles of social justice, human rights, collective responsibility, and respect for diversities are central to social work. Underpinned by theories of social work, social sciences, humanities, and indigenous knowledges, social work engages people and structures to address life challenges and enhance well being. Thus, the above definition may be amplified at national or regional levels. So, this is the definition of social work. Now, you know, the core mandates or the here this social work, if you see every word has certain meanings, you know. So what does the core mandates say? The social work profession core mandates include promoting social change, social development, social cohesion and empowerment and liberation of the people. So social work is a practice profession and an academic discipline that recognize the interconnected historical, social, economic, cultural, spatial, political, and personal factors serve as opportunities and or barriers to human well-being and development. So these can be an opportunity at the same time can be a barrier also, depending on the situation and circumstance. So structural barriers contribute to the perpetuation of inequalities, discrimination, exploitation, and oppression. So the development of critical consciousness through reflecting on structural sources of oppression and or privilege on the basis of criteria such as race, class, language, religion, gender, disability, culture, and sexual orientation, and also developing action strategies towards addressing structural and personal barriers are central to emancipatory practice towards addressing structure, where the goals are empowerment and liberation of the people. In solidarity with those who are at disadvantage, the profession strives to elevate poverty, liberate the vulnerable and oppressed, and promote social inclusion and social cohesion. So the social change mandate is based on the premise that social work intervention takes place when the current situation, be this at level of the person, family, small group, community, or society, is deemed to be in need of change and development. So it is driven by the need to challenge those structural conditions that contribute to marginalization, social exclusion, and oppression. Social change initiates recognize the play of human agency in advancing human rights and economic, environmental, and social justice. The profession is equally committed to the maintenance of social stability insofar as such stability is not used to marginalize, exclude, or oppress any particular group of persons. So, social development is conceptualized to mean strategies for intervention, desired and states, and a policy framework, the latter in addition to the more popular residual and the institutional frameworks. It is based on this holistic psychosocial, spiritual assessments and interventions that transcend the micro macro divide, incorporating multiple system levels and intersectorial and interprofessional collaboration aimed at sustainable development, prioritizes social, structural, and economic development, and does not subscribe to the conventional wisdom that the economic growth is a prerequisite for social development. Now, what are the core principles of social work? Now, the overarching principles of social work are respect for the inherent worth and dignity of human beings, doing no harm, respect for diversity, and uphold human rights and social justice. Advocating and upholding human rights or social justice is the motivation and justification for social work. The social work profession recognizes the human rights need to coexist alongside with the collective responsibility. The idea of collective responsibility highlights the reality that individual human rights can only be realized on a day-to-day basis if people are responsible for each other and their environment. The importance of creating reciprocal relationships within communities. There are a major focus of social work is to advocate for the rights of people at all levels and to facilitate outcomes where people take responsibility and for the others' well-being. Realize and respect the interdependence among people and between the people and environment. So social work embraces first, second, and third generation rights. The first generation rights refer to civil and political rights such as freedom of speech and conscious, freedom from torture, freedom from arbitrary detention. So second generation to socio-economic and cultural rights that include rights to reasonable levels of education, healthcare and housing, and minority language rights. And third generation rights focus on the natural world and right to species biodiversity and intergenerational equity. These rights are mutually reinforcing and interdependent and accommodate both individual and collective rights. So, in some instances, doing no harm and respect for diversity may represent conflicting and competing values. For example, where in the name of culture, the rights, including the right of life of groups such as women and homosexuals, are violated. The global standards for social work education and training deals with this complex issue by advocating the social workers are schooled in a basic human rights approach with an explanatory note that reads as such an approach might facilitate constructive confrontation and change where certain cultural beliefs, values, and traditions violates people's basic human rights as culture is socially constructed and dynamic. It is subject to deconstruction and change, and such constructive confrontation, deconstruction, and change may be facilitated through tuning into yeah, and an understanding of particular cultural values, beliefs, and traditions via critical and reflective dialogue with members of the cultural group that is of broader human rights issue. So social work is both interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary because we have seen like social service, it can be done anywhere, anytime. For that matter, social work is both interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary and draws on wide area of scientific theories and research. So science is understood in the concept in its most basic meaning as knowledge. Social work draws on its own constantly developing theoretical foundation and research, as well as theories from other human sciences, including but not limited to communication development, social pedagogy, administration, anthropology, ecology, economy, education, management, nursing, psychiatry, psychology, public health, and sociology. The uniqueness of social work research and theories is that they are applied emancipatory. Much of the social work research and theory is constructed with service users in an So the uniqueness of social work research and theories is that they are applied and emancipated. Much of the social work research and theory is constructed with service users in an interactive, dialogic process and therefore informed by specific environment. So this proposed definition acknowledges that social work is informed not only by specific practice environments and Western theories, but also by indigenous knowledge. Part of the legacy of colonialization is the Western theories and knowledges that have been exclusively valorized and indigenous knowledges have been devalued, discounted, and homogenized by Western theories and knowledge. The proposed definition attempts to half and reverse the process by acknowledging that indigenous people in each region, country, or area and no, the proposed definition attempts to halt and reverse the process by acknowledging that indigenous people in each region, country, or area carry their own values and ways of knowing, ways of transmitting their knowledges, and have invaluable contribution to the science. So social work seeks to redress historic Western scientific colonialism and hegemony by listening to and learning from indigenous peoples around the world. In this way, social work acknowledges will be social work knowledges will be co-created and informed by indigenous peoples and more appropriately. So in this way, the social work acknowledges the social work knowledge will be co-created and informed by indigenous peoples and more appropriately practiced not only in local environments but also internationally. So drawing on the work of United Nations, the IFSW defines indigenous people as follows. They live within or for maintain attachments to geographically distinct ancestral territories. They lend to maintain district distinct social, economic, and political institutions with their territories. They typically aspire to remain distinct culturally, geographically, and distinct ancestral territories. They tend to maintain distinct social, economic, political institutions with their territories. They aspire to remain distinct culturally, geographically, and institutionally, rather than assimilate fully into national society. Their self-identity as a resource person. Just let me check. Drawing on the work of the United Nations, the IFSW defines indigenous peoples as they live with or maintain attachments to geographical distinct ancestral territories. They tend to maintain distinct social, economical, and political institutions with their territories. They typically aspire to remain distinct culturally, geographically, and institutionally, rather than assimilate fully into a national society. The self-identity as indigenous or tribal. So social work legitimacy and mandate lie in its intervention at the points where people interact with their environment. The environment includes the various social systems that people are embedded in and the natural geographical environment, which has a profound influence on the lives of the people. The participatory methodology advocated in social work is reflected in engages people and structure to address life challenges and enhance well-being. As far as possible, social work supports the participatory methodology advocated in social work is reflected in engages people and structures to address life challenges and enhance well-being. As far as possible, social work supports working with rather than for people. Consistent with the social development paradigm, some workers utilize a range of skills, techniques, strategies, principles, academic activities at various system levels directed at the system maintenance or system change efforts. So, socially, so from an emancipatory perspective, this these definitions support social work for strategies that are aimed at increasing people's hope, self-esteem, and creative uh, potential to confront and challenge the same oppressive powers dynamics and structural source of injustices, thus incorporating into a coherent whole micro and macro perceptual political dimension of intervention, the holistic uh, focus of social work, and from time to time, depending on the historical, cultural, political, and socio-economic condition, is the responsibility for social workers across the world. So we can send an email or something. So it is the responsibility of social workers across the world to defend, enrich, realize the values and principles reflected in this definition. A social work definition can also be meaningful when social workers actively commit to its values and vision. The additional notions that were passed in the IFSW general meeting relating to the global regarding to the global definition of social work. No part of this definition shall be constructed in a way to interfere with any other parts in the situation. As a definition of social work is a key element for establishing the identity of an occupational group or a future revision of this definition has to be initiated over precise evaluation of the imposted process and need for change, adding further comments. Is to be the first choice after all the definition. So with this definition and a little scope, Now, with this definition, we can also see that, in short, social work is a profession in which trained professionals are developed to helping vulnerable people and communities work through challenges they face in everyday life, and social workers practice in a very variety of settings, united in their commitment by advocating for and people these lives of the individuals, families, and groups, and by a society. As discussed, promoting social work and helping people from background overcoming in the individual as if they are not, no, advocate for social and economic justice for members of diverse community and embody the social work code of ethics. Social workers work differently with the and on behalf of a wide variety of populations like children and adolescents, individuals and with disabilities, individuals who are experiencing poverty or homelessness, medical patients, LGBTQ individuals, individuals suffering from addiction, students, individuals with mental health, refugee, immigrants, refugees and immigrants, aging and individual, couples and tonsils, victim of violence or crime, individuals, social workers are uniquely positioned to help our fellow members of society who are vulnerable, oppressed, or marginalized. So, the social scope of social worker or social work practice create a huge in many ways, but they also change, no? Which protects the individual and social worker can impact at all levels of practice. And social workers create change in many ways from high systems, low systems, macro protection protests also generally keep 90. So, so these are there are diverse ranges as we discussed where social workers can be employed like schools, hospitals, government agencies, community development, community and community doctor ready community clinics. But the time is up. So they, you know, the job description for social workers vary significantly depending on the uh, area they work. No, so there are diverse range of agencies that employees as a social worker have faced. So what are the, no, where are the social workers employed? Schools, all levels, higher education, hospitals and healthcare agency, government agencies, and no including Veterans Affairs, in short, VA. That's very good. Now we can offer for speaker in absence. So as we have seen the difference between social worker and social service worker, there is a common question set asked at the end of the day by employers. Only those college members who can use protected titles like social worker, registered social worker, and collaborate. Only college members use the social work, registered social worker, and social service worker, registered the social service worker. So this colleague has processed in their country as when we say there are no speakers. Now we can contact. The social workers provide services in variety of workplace settings from holiday, hospitals, community centers to schools and colleges. Social work service agencies and social service workers, on the other hand, had tend to be employed in a range of settings from group names to shelters to maintenance and youth programs. The major difference between social service and social work mainly exists in their structure. You know, because as already discussed, man has all along been a social animal and rightly so. So if you ask a person to live alone, he will develop all sorts of mental and psychological problems that reflect man's need to be in touch with other human beings, to be moved by others' plight. It's a basic instinct of human beings that drive many to work in the field of social work. Many has bestowed with emotions by God as a result and feeling of love and affection, as well as the ability to be moved by sufferings of others, make human beings do something for fellow brethren. So these are the instances of people going abroad to serve people in distress. The term social work and social service are two important concepts that, despite being highly similar, confuse a lot of there as some basic differences that people fail to understand. These attempts to highlight these differences for the benefit of the at least the readers or the visitors or the participants or for the general public. So social work is an profession as well as an academic discipline that expects to improve quality of life and well-being of the people who are consciously under same or some kind of distress such as poverty. Then social work conducts different activities such as researches, direct practices, teaching for well-being of people and facial scrolling. Teaching for well-being of people who face social disadvantages during situations such as poverty, injustice, etc. So as we have seen, a lot of types of social work like in administration, in management, in advocacy, in community organization, in medical social work and aging and child welfare, developmental disabilities, healthcare, international social work, or justice and corrections, health and clinical social work, mental health and substance abuse social work, mental health and substance abuse social work, occupational and employee assistance EAP social work, policies, planning, politics, public welfare, research and school social workers. These are the various opportunities or for the avenues of social work. So with this, we shall conclude that we need to understand the basic difference, but at the same time, as a human being, we need to be still doing social work. So with this, if you have any queries, then you can unmute yourself and ask. Otherwise, we shall conclude. You can raise your hand if you want to share anything on the thoughts I have shared. Okay, if there are none, then we'll be sharing the feedback form. We will see you on tomorrow's session. feedback form has been shared in chat box. Kindly fill up the feedback form before you leave the webinar. So quickly fill up the feedback form. It's mandatory for receiving the certificates. By download.
हेलो
Hello.
सर, फीडबैक फॉर्म कहाँ पर मिलेगा?
चैट बॉक्स में शेयर किए ना.
अच्छा जी, ठीक है, थैंक यू सर.
See you all tomorrow at the same time with a different topic. Tomorrow we have one of the off topic from the series. So we have feminine psychology by one of the renowned speaker. So you can join by 6 o'clock tomorrow. We can explore these feminine aspects and the femininity in psychology tomorrow. Participants, quickly fill up the feedback form. It has been shared in the chat box. Dear friends, quickly fill up the feedback form before you leave the webinar. Feedback form has been shared in the chat box. Quickly fill up the feedback form. And this Sunday, there is an international workshop conference as usual on theme social work, compassion, humanity, which are very much related to humans, close to human beings. So if anyone is interested to present your papers, you are welcome. And also share with your friends and students, research scholars, colleagues. So they can also utilize this opportunity and participate. So see you all tomorrow. Take care. Good night. After filling the feedback form, you may leave for the day. Take care. Good night.